My mom was a waitress. My dad, he was a garbage man. Now he's a bus driver. So my family was always like laborers, blue collar. When I graduated from high school, I told my dad, I'm going to go work in a warehouse, and that's what I really thought I was going to do. So I started at Home Depot, thought I was going to elevate. I think it was about 6 months in. I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. So I was like, let me try college again. But I've been in school for about 10 years. It was in college for 10 years because I was still trying to figure out my path, what it looked like, what I wanted to do. I'm not going to lie. I think I was more excited about getting into this boot camp than I was getting into college. It was a little crazy. I was so excited. She called me. She was like, we want to offer you a spot here at the boot camp. And after that, the rest was history.
Are you comfortable sharing what your salary is at Niantic as a entry-level software engineer?
I make about $98,000, which is really cool. You know what I mean? Coming from Home Depot.
What's up, guys? Andrew Baines here from the Custom Journeys podcast. This podcast is all about helping you all have a successful STEM career and then also introducing you to some amazing, diverse STEM professionals. We've gotten a lot of requests for people that are interested in tech apprenticeship programs. And if you recall, I actually did a 5-minute video introducing you all to 3 different tech apprenticeship programs. One of those programs was ran by a partnership between Niantic and Tech Elevator. Today, we get to interview a cohort member from that tech apprenticeship program. So today, I'm extremely excited to be interviewing Austin. He's going to be talking about his journey as a tech apprentice at Niantic, how he got into the program, different things he's learned, and how you can improve your chances of getting into a program in the future. So very pleased to have you join today. Austin, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's a beautiful day. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Cool. And so this is probably come out well after the game tonight, but today we got the Lakers playing Golden State. You're in the Bay Area. Are you a Warriors fan, by the way? Are you rooting for the Warriors in Game 6 tonight?
I am. I'm definitely rooting for them, but I'm more of a passive fan. I'm not a big sports fan, but I am definitely rooting for the Warriors today, for sure.
Okay. All right. That works, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to see like LeBron James win one more ring. So, or at least 2 more. And then he could be tied with Jordan. But I'm a more of a passive fan as well. I just appreciate the greatness. So we'll be staying tuned to see how that plays out. But thanks for joining so much, man. I really appreciate it. So glad we got a chance to get you on the podcast. I didn't say it in the intro, Austin, but you actually have a physics background. And so you've been able to use that degree in physics as well as some other things that you've learned throughout your career to get into this accelerator program with Niantic. I keep wanting to say accelerator program, to get into this apprenticeship program with Niantic. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a tech apprentice at Niantic?
Absolutely. So, yes, I'm currently a software engineer apprentice at Niantic. I'm currently working with the ads team here. I'm currently working with the ads team. We're working with their sister company, Eighth Wall, trying to get an ads domain website or a partner portal actually established on the website. So that way people can start creating different augmented reality ads if they would like.
So interesting. So what is that? I think I saw like Ready Player One or something like that, where like you got like the virtual reality headset, like an Oculus headset on, you're playing the games and whatnot. But you see like a bunch of advertisements like during the game or like in between like missions or whatever. So y'all are like really making that happen in the real world.
So right now we're trying to just get the website started. We're not necessarily sure how that's going to look. I'm not even sure if it's going to be on headsets. As far as I know, it's going to be just on phones. So how we have like Pokemon Go, you kind of interact with the real world on your phone. So it'll basically be something like that where someone may scan a QR code and then it pulls up an ad for some website or something very specific. But as far as I know right now, it's going to just be through the phone, no headsets.
That's cool too. My oldest son, Noah, he's actually really big into Jurassic Park. And so there's like this Jurassic Park app that he plays with on my phone where it's like they have like an augmented reality feature. And basically like he can make a dinosaur appear in the room from the phone. And so he's always using my phone for different things like that. So I could definitely see the use case where like, yo, there's a dinosaur right there, but then maybe behind it, there's an ad for like a new toy or a new Jurassic Park movie or whatever the case may be. So pretty interesting stuff. What tech stack do you guys typically use to like create these ads or these different platforms and everything?
So as far as the website goes, we've been using a couple different software. One is Node for the backend side. We've been using like Google Spanner for like our database, and React primarily for like front end stuff. But we also have different I guess you could say ads will be hosted in different places. So while our server may be hosted on Node, right, for the backend side of one portal or one server, on the other end, it's going to be using Golang, potentially Golang. So it's very very diverse. There's no like one thing. Like even throughout the company, people use all sorts of different tech stacks. So and even then, we just started this website, and these are tools that we've decided on for now. It may change in the next month. So the stack it changes fast. My mentor has talked to me about that, about how much new software, new technology you're going to be learning on a constant basis. So but I mean, I'm learning. The tools that I got from my boot camp definitely set me up. Like the tech stack that I used in my boot camp is completely different than what I'm using now. But the tools that I have, or the things that I learned, have stuck with me. It's just a different way of writing code. But yeah, all in all, those are the ones that we're using right now.
All right, cool. And I'm really glad they partnered you up with like a mentor. I know the program that you're going through is a partnership between Tech Elevator and Niantic, but is Niantic the one that provides you like a mentor to kind of help you out with like the roadblocks and the pitfalls and the speed bumps ahead that you may not even see? Or is that kind of something that you got from the Tech Elevator team?
So the Tech Elevator was primarily involved with just the learning, the software development boot camp. After we finished that, we're all with Niantic. So my mentor is actually a manager. He's the manager for the ads here at Niantic, and this was something that was planned through Niantic, not Tech Elevator.
Like, how has that mentorship process helped? Because it seems like that's a huge win to have somebody who's already been in your shoes years ago that can kind of tell you like how to be successful and kind of outline things, and not just from like an abstract point of view, but like very specific to your role and like how you can be successful in your current position. So like, how has that mentoring been beneficial for you?
My mentor has been amazing. He has definitely he's talked about, of course, the tools that I learn, learning at a certain pace. Maybe I'm not learning at a pace that I would like. And he's like, you're doing fine, you're doing fine. But most of his mentoring comes from like just talking to me about what it means to be a software developer. It's like he's been coding since I believe he was 11 years old, so
Wow.
he has a lot of experience. But he's an amazing mentor. He's very, sometimes you don't know what type of relationship you're going to have with someone, but he fosters the type of relation, or we both foster a relationship where we're very very close. Like I feel like I can talk to him about a lot. It's not like this kind of like glass between us or this wall between us. So I would say, all in all, I have a great mentor. I feel like I probably have the best mentor. I could be a little biased, but I think I have the best mentor.
All right, dope. I love it, man. So I'm really curious about like the day in the life for you as like a software engineer within Niantic. What does that typical day look like from like, you don't have to go as far back and say like, yo, I wake up, take a shower, brush my teeth. But like once you get into work, like once work starts, what does that look like for you?
Well, first I wake up, brush my teeth. Just kidding. But no, so usually when I get into work, I'm usually here pretty early. I kind of start things off a little slow, still trying to get my brain started. But usually our days start off with like stand up. You know what I mean? We start off with stand up, kind of fill in our team. We have a daily stand up. So every day we have stand up for about 15 minutes, just kind of fill our teammates on. Because so we back up a little bit. So our team primarily uses Agile and Scrum, which is basically, it's like a process that teams go through to kind of keep each other filled in. So we have like different tickets that we're working on for like a main epic story, right? Which basically describes something, a specific type of product, right? And so each of us have these different little tickets that make up that product. And so each day we kind of come in and fill each other in with what our processes are, what our blockages are. And if we need help, maybe other teammates can help us. But we work so much together that we have to kind of just keep in communication. What else? We get lunch. We got some good lunch. Good lunch. We get like Uber Eats here, so that's pretty cool.
Also, the company just provides lunch every day?
Pretty much, yeah. So Mondays and Wednesdays, they have lunch catered into the office. And then Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, you get it's like a $20 Uber voucher where you can go to any restaurant you want,
Yo,
or even you can have it delivered, but it's, delivery fees be like $15. You don't want to pay that. So you just usually get something local. Like today I got some fish tacos, good fish tacos too, just below us in the ferry building. So
all right.
it's good, but I would say there's definitely a lot of meetings where we just kind of filling each other in and communicating. Again, communicating is very, very important. It's I talked to my manager about this. It's arguably one of the most important things that you should have as a software engineer. And he says this. There are people who have the technical skills, they can do the problem, but they can't communicate what it is they're trying to solve, what problems they're trying to have. They're unable to communicate with their team members, and it makes things a bit more inefficient than one may think. So a lot of it is communication. If we're in meetings, we're just communicating different teams, our team, stuff like that.
I'm glad you broke that down because I think there are like misconceptions about what the like typical day in the life is versus like what people's perception is. And some people may go into tech or STEM because they're like, yo, I just want to like work on my own, not have to talk to people. But quickly you'll be surprised. Like it's the complete opposite of what you're thinking, if that's what you think it is. And if you're trying to be successful, really, to be honest with you, you need to be working collaboratively, like on a team. So thanks for breaking that down. We've already kind of talked about that you've been working at Niantic primarily due to this partnership between Tech Elevator and Niantic. From the research I've done, Tech Elevators typically do like coding boot camps, meaning like, hey, regardless if you have like a STEM degree or not, if you want to learn how to code, you can go to like a coding boot camp like Tech Elevator or one of their competitors, whoever you decide to go with. And it's typically like a fast-paced, like 16-week program where you get to learn those coding skills on demand. But I think it was really cool to see Tech Elevator partner with Niantic to not only teach people the skill set, but then also match them up so that they get a job at the end of it. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what everybody cares about the most, right? A big part of this discussion I want to have is like getting into the program though, and like what people can expect once they get in. So can you kind of walk me through that process of how you got into the program, or even before that, like how did you hear about the program initially?
Yeah, so I mean, my journey is a little long, and we could talk about that. But I think, like, I knew I wanted to go into tech. I really enjoyed coding. I took some coding classes while I was studying physics, and there were actually some classes that required in physics that we do some coding. So I really enjoyed that. And I originally planned on going into tech after I graduated. So after I was doing a lot of studying on my own, just learning some skills, some new software, just trying to learn. And along this path, my aunt actually was watching the news. She was watching Cron 4 here in the Bay Area, and she's seen, this come up. Oh, Tech Elevator is having a software development boot camp, partnering with Niantic, where a group of individuals will be sponsored, to go through our boot camp, and there may be an apprenticeship that may follow. So she told me about this. She's like, "Oh, so you gotta sign up for this boot camp," because she knew I was trying to go into tech. So she was like, "You gotta sign up. You gotta sign up." So at first I was like, like what are the chances that I'm gonna actually get in? But then I kept thinking about it, looked it up, and I was like, I'm gonna apply. So I went and applied on the website. First, you gotta like you get trying to get some information. You got to fill out this, that, and then they want you to take like it's like a test. They want to analyze how well, in our case, how well we solve problems, or more specifically, recognize patterns. Because my test was more so pattern recognition. And I've never taken a test like this. I was like, when I first started it, I was like, what is this? Like, and I've taken a couple tests, but I have never seen. And then it dawned on me at like maybe 20 minutes, and we only have an hour to take this test. At like 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is a pattern. You're supposed to recognize these little differences. So then once I saw that, I was like, okay. And then it just became a little bit easier. But yeah, it started off with the test. And then after that, they're like, hey, we're excited. We would love to interview you. So afterward, I had an interview with Meredith, one of the people at Tech Elevator. And our interview was awesome. She's awesome. She's an awesome person. Interviewed with her. And she was like, okay, well, I still have some interviews with people. give it about like 2 weeks. I was so antsy, and she called me on the very last day at the very last minute. I'm not gonna lie. I think I was more excited about getting into this boot camp than I was getting into college. Like it was a little crazy. I was so excited, you know. So yeah, that's how it went. So she called me. She was like, we want to offer you a spot here at the boot camp, and after that, the rest was history. Started the boot camp, and we can, talk about that if you want to as well. But I know I'm kind of
Yeah.
probably rambling at this point.
Hey, that's awesome, man. When you talk about that interview with Meredith and you guys had a great discussion, what was that interview process like with Meredith? Was it just her kind of learning more about your story and your interest in tech and why you want to pursue this program, or was it more like a technical kind of interview? What was that interview process like with her, the one-on-one?
So yeah, it was more so just trying to get familiar with who I was, like it was more of a personal type of interview. She didn't ask me any tech interview questions or nothing technical. For the most part, it was just, you know, who are you? What do you do? What makes you interested in tech, stuff like that. And then there was a couple questions at the end where she was like, well, what if you don't get the apprenticeship? What is that gonna feel like? And I'm like, I told her, I was like, well, I would appreciate, it would be great if I had the apprenticeship, but my goal is to go into tech, it's to go into tech. So the boot camp would be enough for me. I don't necessarily have to have the apprenticeship, and I think that was just kind of like an indication that I was serious about going into tech, but for the most part, it was very personal. We even got to talking about, like, because I have a bunch of books. We started talking about my books. We started talking about, like, I go to the gym, she goes to the gym. So it was very personal, and that's what I think people really appreciate in interviews, is getting away from all the serious stuff and just trying to connect with someone very personally.
Yeah.
So it was a great interview though.
That's great. No, I'm so happy you mentioned that because that's a big part that I think we miss out on, right? Like you prep for the interview and you're doing your studying and you're thinking of all the technical questions they may ask you, all the projects you've worked on. But at the end of the day, the person interviewing you across the table or across the screen is just a human. And they want to know, how can you connect with people? How can you resonate and be on a team and work successfully with others? It just improves your chances if you're able to connect with somebody, right? And you can find different things y'all connect with, whether it's books or working out in the gym. I don't know if y'all was talking about like personal records on the bench press or whatever, and Meredith is talking about how much she's maxing out or whatever. But however you can like connect with people, like that goes a long way in the interview process. Because I think people tend to hire who they like, so to speak, right? Like even if you're like great, fantastic technically, but you got like a terrible personality and people don't think you're going to resonate well, chances are you're probably not going to get that job because they don't think you're going to be able to fit in well with others. Once you get accepted into the program, what happens after that? Like, is it 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, like just purely training with Tech Elevator, or did they just throw you into the fire and send you over to Niantic? Like, what does that look like after you get accepted into the program?
Oh no, it's straight to the fire. It is straight to the fire. I'm just kidding. So no, we just kind of start the boot camp. We started the boot camp, I want to say maybe a month later in October. Niantic was involved in our boot camp, but it was more so on so we had two parts to the boot camp. One was the part where you learned about how to, code in Java, and you learn how to use Postgres and JavaScript. And then the second half, we had like a professional development part where they teach you about like how to build like optimal LinkedIn, what a good resume looks like, how to interview, technical interviews, behavioral interviews. So that was the second side. And usually, because it was very informal, like Niantic would come in and say, this is what we look for at the company during the interview process. This is what will set you apart, stuff like that. But for the most part, the boot camp was entirely done by Tech Elevator.
How long was the program in total? Like, I know you said it started in October, but how long? Like, when did it end?
So ours ended in February. So started October 23rd, ended, I want to say, February 11th. And ours was a little longer. So it's typically a 14-week program, but we had 16 weeks because ours coincided with Thanksgiving break and Christmas break. So we had a little reset, couple reset processes. But all in all, ours was about 14 weeks.
Okay, and you mentioned y'all learned Java during that time frame, and what else?
Yes. So it was broken up. The program was broken up into three sections. Module one was backend. So we learned Java, all the basics around it, fundamentals. And then the second half, we learned this is when we tied we tied Java into database, backend programming, like how the server works with the client and stuff like, well, maybe not the client, but the backend works in connection with the database. So that we use Postgres, which is another database, and just seeing how Java connects to these different databases. And then the third module was JavaScript with Vue, which is a framework for JavaScript. And then at that point, after you're done with that, you have your final capstone project, and they're pretty big. Like our capstone was pretty big, and we oftentimes break it up, or at least our or teacher recommended that we break it up. But I was on full stack. I was like, I want to do the whole thing. I want to learn. I want to apply all the skills that I learned in this boot camp. So I did back, middle, and front. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah,
like, I'm not about to be doing one. I said, I'm gonna use all these skills. So I learned. I applied all my skills, and we had a great project. One of
I
the
feel you.
best.
You're like, yo, I'm about to use all these skills. Y'all done made me learn all this stuff. I'm about to use it for today. Like,
Okay. Stress me out. No, I'm about to use these skills.
yeah, I feel you. What'd you do for your final project, like the capstone? What'd you do, or like what'd you make?
It was a meal planner application. So we created like a website, how it would look, and it basically was intended for folks who are kind of like busy. You basically would compile this list of ingredients that you have in your pantry or your closet, right? And based on those ingredients, it would connect to an API, which would then compile a bunch of different recipes for you. So you didn't have to go looking on Google for something, especially if it's repetitive. And then the API gave a very diverse a wide range of different recipes, which was really good. But again, it was always based on what you had in your cabinet. It wasn't like you had to go shopping or. So that was our intended goal, was just to, get a nice meal in for the week.
I could definitely see some problems where like a lot of the fellas may just have like seasonings left in their pantries like at the end of the week or the end of the month. So there may be some instances
Yeah.
where like you're gonna be making that app work real hard to try to figure out like what these people can make with peanut butter and jelly and paprika and whatever
Yeah.
else, like trying to make it. But it's
Yeah.
a cool idea. I
It's
like the
something you
concept.
probably should make.
I feel you. I feel you. So 16 weeks to learn Java, Postgres, and Vue. That's not easy. Like, what tips or recommendations would you have for others who are considering a boot camp, like to be successful and pick up the information so quickly? Because I know it's a lot that you're learning in a short time.
For me, I would say one thing that I kind of struggled with in the boot camp was balance, because I'm pretty, like, I love going to the gym and it's good for my mental health and stuff. But it can get very busy. But I didn't plan enough time for me to go to the gym or even just go for a walk or go to the park. You know what I mean? Like I was committing so much of my time to like what I wanted to get done, or even like improve what I already did, that I didn't have that balance, and it did wear on my mental health a little bit. It's not like I was bad. I just wasn't. It could have felt better personally. I could have definitely felt better personally. But again, it's very stress. It can be stressful. It can be stressful. But I feel like if you find a good balance, you will be okay. You will be okay. And you have to make time for that. There's definitely time to go out and do what you need to do. But I would say definitely make sure you have a balance and you're doing things that you want to do, not that you need to do.
I think that's good advice. Great advice, actually. You got to have the balance. You got to protect your mental health in addition to, taking care of the technical things that have to be done. Because if you don't, eventually your body's gonna be tapping out. They can be like, "Yo, sit your butt down. Like, we need a break." And so if you don't give your body a break, it's gonna make you take one. So great advice there.
And if I could add on that, I would also say ask for help. Some of us don't
Mm.
want to ask for help in these moments. Sometimes imposter syndrome comes up. Maybe we're a little too prideful. Please ask for help. But at a certain point, I was just asking, help. Can you help me? Can you help me? Please ask for help. And also,
Yeah.
I would say read the doc. A lot of this, the things that you're going to be learning about have pretty good docs. Some of them have pretty good docs, which are very helpful. And so I would say read the docs. But yes, please ask for help. It makes things so much. You're not sitting on a problem for 2 hours when it could have took 2 minutes to solve this little line, or. So definitely
Yeah.
ask for help.
That's a big one. I think a lot of people struggle with that because they feel like, yo, if I ask this question, this person gonna realize that I'm not smart or I shouldn't be here. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I think that's a big one for a lot of people. And I think that's something that we all kind of struggle with. So thanks for mentioning that too. Um, the man at February when the program ends, what happens next? Like,
Mhm.
then is it like, yo, you graduated, job well done, you got the technical skill set, you also got like the professional development stuff in terms of like what Niantic's looking for, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, all that stuff. Did everybody from that point go on to Niantic, or like did you have to apply to Niantic? Like, what happened after you completed the boot camp?
So we started in October. We were given interviews. So mind you, again, we were doing professional development, but we had to interview for our apprenticeship position. We weren't all guaranteed a spot in this apprenticeship. So there were 20 people that were selected for the boot camp. And they had their tuition paid for the boot camp, but only 10 of the 20 were selected for the apprenticeship. So about this, I want to say it was December 16th, 2022. Actually, no, it was a whole week, but mine was December 16th. We interviewed for our apprenticeship position. And that had two parts to it. The first interview was technical, but it wasn't the traditional technical route. Like we kind of knew what we were going to be asked. So we had our first capstone project was a vending machine. And we were kind of just expected to talk about that. What were some things that we didn't want to or that we didn't complete that we wanted to? What were some things that we just struggled with? What are some things that we would have changed about our project? So we kind of knew and we're already kind of set up to answer these questions. But I mean, the questions were a little different. They didn't give us the questions, but they were kind of just saying, we want you to talk about your vending machine. I think for me, it was definitely being honest. Like I personally struggled with this. I didn't do this. I would change this now in this way now that I know this information, because our capstone project was a month before this interview, so we have these new skills. And so the second one was more behavioral. How does Niantic values apply to you? How do they fit in with who you are? So basically, I think that's for a lot of companies is they want you to see how well you align with their values. They want to see, like, do you appreciate these values? So we interviewed for the apprenticeship in December, and then we were notified in January. So after we finished in I think February 16th, February 11th, something like that. The apprenticeship actually started on February 23rd. So we had about a 2-week break before the apprenticeship actually started.
Man, so I'm imagining,
Yeah.
you were super excited to get into the boot camp. You were probably even more excited to get in at like Niantic, because then like you've officially accomplished your goal of like getting into tech, right?
Yeah. I think that was actually probably, now that I'm thinking about it, that was probably more exciting than both college and the software. That actually was probably the most exciting one. So
Yeah,
because it's like you're actually starting your path, your journey. So I think that was probably the more exciting acceptance more than anything.
cool. Hey man, so congratulations to you. Like you've accomplished
Thank you.
that. When did you, I don't want to go into too much details about like your undergrad in physics. I know you have that degree, but like when did you graduate with your physics degree?
So I graduated last year in 2022, so June of 2022. So it took me a couple of months, but I've been in school for about 10 years. I was in college for 10 years because I was still trying to figure out my path, what it looked like, what I wanted to do. I moved to different cities. I was working, so it wasn't like I graduated from high school in 2012. You know what I mean? So it's been a while since I graduated from high school, but I graduated last year from college.
That's a lot. I want to go into everything. Before we, I want to talk about like your personal journey to where you got. But before we do that, I want to ask you like June 2022, you graduated with a physics degree. October, you get accepted into the boot camp at Tech Elevator. February, you get accepted into Niantic as an employee, full-time employee. This program has been very popular, in high demand. You got accepted. You obviously left a great impression with the recruiters and Meredith and everybody at Tech Elevator. What do you think has kind of separated you from the competition and made you stand out?
I definitely think my journey has definitely separated me because it's very unorthodox. Like I didn't study science in high school. This is something that I decided in college. Most of my peers were studying calculus in high school. That's something that I picked up years, like 3 years after I started college. So it's very, and then there were other things that went into that, but I think with what it is that I eventually want to do, it's connected with who I am. So I would say that my sharing my personal experience or my personal journey throughout college and life has definitely um, set me apart potentially. But I also think again, like being able to really connect with people is really, really important, and I really try and do that on a very close. It's hard to like have shallow relationships, you know what I mean? So I think that being able to connect with someone, find out their interests, like even in my interview, my tech interview, my interview in December, I connected with both of my interviewers, that started talking about their personal experiences, and that's what I think potentially, I don't know if the other interviewees did the same thing, but I definitely tried to connect with people more personally, and so that could be it. Those could be it. But yeah, those are the things that come to mind. You know.
I definitely think it shows a lot of persistence, right? Like, because in 2022, when you graduated with your physics degree, you said that's 10 years from your high school graduation. Most people would have like been like, "Yo, I'm not going back to school. It's taking too long to finish. I've changed majors a couple of times, or I've been working part time, or whatever the case may be." What's giving you that like persistence to continue to see this journey through? I know you may not have had like tech as an end goal, or maybe you did as an end goal when you first started college, but what's allowed you to stay consistent and persevere regardless of like the different obstacles, and to like be like, "Yo, I'm gonna do this come hell or high water, like this is gonna happen." So like what's helped you be so persistent in everything?
There are a couple of things actually. I feel like the grit kind of came with, kind of like when I got into City College, I started reading on my own. This is the first time I started actually like finished reading a book, and it was an autobiography of Malcolm X. And I feel like it kind of like opened me up to see things differently. And I just started consuming books on my own just for fun. Um, and a lot of it was around like my history, you know what I mean, who I was, and seeing like what people have sacrificed for me to be in the position that I am today to do what I want to do. So that has definitely shaped me. Also, being the first in my family to graduate, like my grandmother, my granny, she's always talking about how she wanted to see me graduate. She was going to come wear her big old hat, at the graduation. So that, and I have a great support system. Like my family has always pushed. They may not know like how or the direction, but they're like, we want you to finish, you're gonna be great. You're gonna do great. Um, and so, yeah, those are a couple of the things. And then also seeing that I'm not going to be the only person basically what I want to do is I want other people who look like me to be able to go on this path and this journey, you know what I mean, to science. That's my goal, is to eventually have like a startup where we push people from underrepresented communities into science. And I think that one of the major things that will kind of like keep us there is coding, computer science, and even games. It really piques young people's interests, you know. Sometimes, like, oh, I don't want to do physics, I don't want to do chemistry, I'll do some coding, I'll do some game. Well, if you go into computer science, you have to do the chemistry, you have to do the math, you have to do the physics. And so I think realizing that this is much bigger than me is what really 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 pushes me to keep on going, for sure.
Man, that's deep. I've noticed a sense of responsibility from a lot of people that come on this show, where it's like they realize the importance of like not just doing this for themselves, but the responsibilities that they have to live up to the standard their ancestors set for them, or like the people that sacrifice for you to vote, the people that sacrifice for you to be able to go to get an education and all their things. Like they realize the sacrifices that were taken, and even within their own family, right? Like I've had a lot of people that are like immigrants on this show, and they talk about like, yo, my parents moved from Nigeria to America, and like they had to work 2 and 3 jobs to make it happen. So they had to live up to this standard, and I think you're doing the same thing, where you once you got that knowledge and that wisdom from reading books about whether it was like Malcolm X or different civil rights leaders. And I think I read that you even studied like African American studies in college, and like I think all of that kind of played a role into giving you a why behind what you were doing, not just going to work just to go to work, but or not just going to school just to go to school, but now you had a why for what you were doing, and it was to live up to the standard. Not only your ancestors or civil rights leaders or whoever, but even your grandparents, your granny that's telling you, hey, yo, I'm gonna wear my big Sunday hat. I'll be in the front row cheering for my baby, all that stuff. So I think that is huge, because if you don't have that strong why, that strong compass that's like leading you and pushing you to persevere, like it's so easy to give up, because life is hard, right? Like stuff happens each and every day, and some things happen are bigger than other things, like whether it's like death in the family or lose a job, don't get an opportunity you thought you were going to get, break up with a significant other, whatever the case may be. But if you don't have that why, that strong why, like it's so easy to just quit and call it quits.
I would say, you know, I mean, my journey has been long, and there were a couple, well, what if I quit? You know what I mean? And I think, but I think it was never really serious, you know, like my why was, again, always bigger. But I would say COVID, I was this close to quitting when we started having to learn online. It was so hard. And I was taking quantum physics while we were out, you know, while we were learning online. It was, oh my God, I swear to God, it was that
You're
close.
like, Granny, I'm
Man,
sorry, I love you.
I don't know. You might have to put the hat in the box.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Fortunately, I didn't have to go through that, but that is tough, bro, to like, because some of those classes themselves, like even if you're in the classroom, they can be like, even if you're interested, it can still be kind of dull, like not boring per se. Some of them are boring if I'm being honest, but like the way it's presented, it can be dull. Like you looking at these long drawn out equations, and you may even be deriving equations, whatever the case may be. It's like, yo, that gets old after a while. And so doing that on a computer where you got so many different ways you can be distracted, like kudos to you and the rest of the pandemic graduates, man, because I know that's not easy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Cool. Hey, so now that you've like, your story is obviously not done. You've even talked about like your ideas for a startup in terms of helping more people from disadvantaged communities to be successful and pushing them towards STEM or science in particular. But you reached this next significant milestone in terms of like, hey, you graduated with your 50th degree, and then from that point, it was always about getting into tech. So how does it feel now, looking back at like the entire journey? Granny was in the front row or at the graduation, and you can tell your parents like, yo, I'm the first to graduate college. I'm the first to get into tech. How does it feel now, looking back at the whole journey?
It feels good. It really feels good. Honestly, sometimes I feel like it was supposed to happen this way, you know. And every day I come to work, like I know I'm supposed to be here. It's not monotonous. It's challenging. I love the people that I work with. You know, I really enjoy working here at Niantic. And so I think that, in addition to accomplishing what I have, it makes things just, it feels like really good. I don't know what other companies operate like, you know, but if companies operated like Niantic, then I would say that everybody should push to go into tech, you know, because it makes work fun, enjoyable. It's not monotonous, you know. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
I know you said you feel like it seemed like this is the way the journey was supposed to play out, right? Looking back, is there anything that you would change or you would do differently if you could kind of go back? Is there anything along the journey that you were like, oh, okay, that was a lesson learned. If I would have went right instead of left, like I could have got here at this point, or I would have learned X, Y, Z along the way. Do you have any of those moments?
No, I don't. I think that all of the wrong turns that I made and all the mistakes that I made bring me to this position. They gave me like a lot of wisdom too, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that I would have changed anything. You know, some people go straight forward, you know, this narrow path, and they don't have wisdom or they don't have like an EQ, like I just think that all the mistakes, and I made mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. That's why it's taking me so long, to get through. So, but I don't think I would have changed. Maybe a couple of study habits. I probably would have, you know what I mean? But other than that, I don't think I would have changed anything. I don't think I would have changed anything.
I respect that because I think it shows, there was a lesson learned along each way. What we may consider mistakes were just lessons learned along the journey. And there's always something you can take out of the different positions. What were some of the jobs that you had during that like 10-year span? I think you told me you worked at like Lowe's or Home Depot or something, right?
Yeah, so that was actually my first job straight out of high school. I was, my mom was a waitress. My dad, he was a garbage man. He worked at DirecTV. Now he works at Muni. He's a bus driver in the city. So my family was always like laborers, blue collar. So I imagine like when I graduated from high school, I told my dad, I'm going to go work in a warehouse. And that's what I really thought I was going to do. So I started at Home Depot, thought I was going to elevate. But I was like, I think it was about 6 months in, I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. So I was like, let me try college again. I'll go to city college. And I liked running track. I remember we talked about this. I thought that track was going to be my way into college, and it didn't happen. So I was like, what do I do? So I started working at Home Depot, moved out to San Francisco, transferred out there. I was working at I was at school. I was a full-time student. I was running track. I was working at Home Depot. And then I was also, eventually I started working for this company, or it's like a nonprofit organization in San Francisco called SMAC, Students Making a Change. And we were kind of like student advocates on our college campus, just kind of informing students about different things. And with that organization, I feel like I did a lot of work. Like I did policy work around education. Basically, that's a whole nother conversation, but I did a lot of stuff, student advocacy on campus. And when I moved down to Long Beach, that's when I started like my studies in science, and I was a tutor. So I was tutoring students math, physics, chemistry, and I did that for some years. And I was, of course, like as being a student, I definitely did my Postmates. You know what I mean? My Instacart. I was doing that after I graduated. I was working part time with Instacart and Grubhub, so that way I could study when I needed to. I was trying to study. I was going into tech, learning these skills, and then I'd work at night. I would do Instacart and Grubhub. So I definitely did that along the way, because you have the freedom to work when you need to or when you want to. So can't forget about them, because they definitely helped me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You get a little study break in, go ahead and make a couple of
Yeah,
runs, a couple of deliveries and everything like
yeah.
that. So I feel you. That's a good journey, man. So no, I think it's probably good that you had that experience in the warehouse, starting off. And to your point about not wanting to change anything, because if you didn't go through that, you may not have come to that realization early on, like, okay, this blue collar work ain't for me. I'm not like trying to lug no 50 pound boxes and things like that up and down these big ladders at like Home Depot or warehouses or whatever the case may be.
And let
Man,
me say, let me say this too. I know that people work hard. Blue collar workers work
yeah,
really hard. You know what I mean? My mom, my dad, they work really hard. So at least I'm not knocking them at all. I'm not knocking them at all. But it just was Home Depot wasn't for me. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to catch you. I'm not trying to get you in like no Ebony K. Williams moment, like dissing the bus drivers and stuff like that. I don't know if you caught up with that, but or keeping up with it. But nah, I ain't trying to get you, in trouble with the blue collar workers. It's to your point,
They're gonna be outside this building when I get out of
I'm
here
like, what you say
today.
about bus drivers, yo, dad? Yeah, so they're gonna be ready. They're gonna be waiting on you, bro. So no, that's a good point. How has the expectation lived up to the reality of being in tech?
I think before I actually joined the team, I had this idea, and I think most people have this idea, which is very fair, that when you are a software developer, you're kind of like potentially even at your house all day, just kind of doing your own thing, just tick, 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 code, code, code. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, you still have a lot of autonomy, but there's a lot of collaboration that goes on between you and other team members, because these epics work so much together. So I would say that that's one thing that's definitely been different, is seeing how much teamwork goes into like our daily work. It's crazy because somebody was just talking to me about this, about how important it is to get up and go talk to other people. It's really, really not about just coding all day. You have to go out and talk to other people in the company, get to know people who are maybe like on, peripheral teams, you know what I mean? So I would say some of those are some of the things that kind of were a little different than I expected. But I think most people, again, think that you just kind of are in your own lane doing your own thing, and that's not the case at all. And there's a lot of meetings, like I didn't expect to be in so many meetings, and I'm just starting. You see some people's calendars, they have like 10, 15 meetings a day because they're working with this team, and then they're working with this team. So there's a lot of meetings, but it's fun. You see all these people walking around the office with their laptops, and it's like you get that tech vibe. So it's really cool. I would say working here at Niantic, they really foster a community, or foster a culture of kind of like being yourself, come as you are. And so I think that really helps for sure, especially being Black, working in a corporate space. It definitely helps. But there's people here, like you can see, I don't know if you see, my nose is pierced. People have all kinds of piercings. They got tattoos. They got color in their hair. So, and we always, like, you have a lot of people that you just connect with, like we go to the pub or the bar on Wednesday, and I just think that the warmth that's generated, it goes beyond just work, so that definitely helps. I like the meetings and stuff. Like, they're not dry meetings are not dry here. They're very interesting because it's always like a new tool. It's not like you crunching numbers all day, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of new innovation that's going on. I feel like innovation is definitely also a really good part. You see how fast, like, they're not lying, like things are changing fast, especially like AI, artificial intelligence. Like, it is going exponentially fast. But even with that, people are saying, like, we're going to be talking about, do you remember when we used to actually type code line by line? So that's the direction they think that we're actually going in. Some people, you know, so, but I honestly, it has definitely lived beyond my expectations. So it's great. It's great.
How much of your day, I know you talked about like the meetings and stuff, how much of your day is actually spent with like doing coding? Like, is it like 50%, or what would you say if you had to do like a percentage wise?
I would say it depends. So Mondays and Fridays are usually my lighter days. So I spend a good chunk on those days. Like, I would say maybe about 70, 80%,
Okay.
Wednesdays and Thursdays are pretty meeting heavy, so maybe about like 30%, 40%, maybe 50%, you know.
Gotcha.
Tuesdays is kind of maybe not. But again, but it's not like just about what. And then again, also, this is a little different because I'm an hourly apprentice. I'm not salaried. So some people go
Uh,
beyond the 8 hours, because they're in a salary. I work strictly 8 hours a day.
gotcha.
So they, probably code a little bit more than maybe I would. So, but yeah, I'm strictly hourly.
Okay. We're going to hit on the salary and also like the professional development in a minute. But since you mentioned AI and, everybody's talking about Chat GPT, AI, everything, I use it a lot
Mhm.
and for podcasting, developing like show notes, all that kind of stuff. But or how are you kind of seeing it? Has it started to impact like your daily job? Like, are people within the organization starting to play around with, hey, what if we use Chat GPT or some other AI code generator to like write out the software for this app or this portion of the app? Let's see how good it is compared to like what our developers would create. Like, have y'all started experimenting with it yet?
We have, but we're in the early stages because artif- artificial intelligence still isn't completely like predictable. You know what I mean? And given that we work with different information, like people's information, or even like sensitive topics or code, we don't want to just hand that over to like an AI. So we're in like a research stage right now to see like what would this look like? Where would we implement this? Would it be here? Would it be there? So we're not using it on a standard basis right now. Some people are using it, but technically, if we are using AI, it's like you have to get an okay from your manager. It's not like you could just go willy nilly, just start coding all kinds of stuff AI. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still in the early stages of research. There's a lot of research being done right now.
Before we go, I want to talk about salary, if you're comfortable talking about that, and then also professional development, in particular, like what Niantic looks for. Because I know you mentioned that was a part of like the boot camp training and everything like that. So first on the salary part, right? Like everybody and their mama is looking for a 6-figure job. I don't know what your salary pays, but are you comfortable sharing what your salary is at Niantic as a entry level like software engineer?
Sure. Yeah. So as an hourly, I make about 98,000 a year. And granted, it's projected to be 98,000. So the apprenticeship is only 6 months, so I won't get 98,000. But if I were, it would be in that area, $98,000. Which is really cool. You know what I mean? Coming from Home Depot.
Nice, man. That's good to hear. Especially, it's not a requirement necessarily to have like a degree or a technical background going into this. So, I mean, regardless of like where your starting point is, to go from not having anything, like tech experience to a 98,000 a year, like I think that's pretty good.
I would also say, hearing you say that, most of the people that were in my cohort for the boot camp were completely coming from different backgrounds. I mean, people were cooks, people were nurses, people were, accountants, so you don't have to have this technical background that I have. You could come from, I'm trying to tell my sister, because she's in early childhood education. So, and I've been telling her, if you need a little change, you know what I mean, I know this boot camp over here.
You
So
the
it's
plug
it's
now.
not that necessary. Yeah, on the plug. I might be able to put in a word or something. So, but it's not intended for people with background. You can come from whatever background you have, and you can, as long as you're willing to learn. It might be a little stressful, but as long as you're willing to learn, you can definitely go into tech. And you don't even need to go through a boot camp if you don't want to. I mean, it's faster, but you don't necessarily have to do that. If you have the skills, if you have like the projects to show that you've applied these different tools that you've used, then that will also work.
While you were going through the program, you got a good chance to kind of work on like LinkedIn optimization, and then also more specifically work with Niantic, and they kind of told you what they typically look for in employees. Can you kind of share some of that knowledge so people that are watching this that maybe they want to apply to the next apprenticeship program, or they just want to apply to a job in general at Niantic, they can kind of have an idea, kind of give them a little bit of a cheat code, you know what I'm saying, like in terms of what Niantic looks
Yeah,
for
yeah.
in employees.
Absolutely. So for us, the Voyagers, they were really focused on how well your life experience or your values aligned with their values. Of course, like we had work that we had to do and there were grades on our work, but for the most part, they just told us, they wanted us to touch on, like, even in the interview process, talk about these different values and how did maybe this experience come up with this value. I think that I know our interview process was a little different than, say, someone who's just going straight into the job, but I think coming or hearing that they wanted us to talk about that is still a good indication that not only Niantic but also other companies want someone who aligns with their values, because then things come really naturally. They really come naturally.
And when you talk about values, are you talking about like diversity? Is it like working on challenging problems, or like what do you kind of mean there in terms of values, in terms of not only personal values but what Niantic is looking for specifically?
And so you put me in the hot seat
Yeah,
now.
I gotta
Niantic,
put you in that chokehold for a minute.
So Niantic actually has a set of values that the company works to like live by, operate on. For example, is just having people get out and explore the world. You know what I mean? Reaching out to lift others up with you. You know what I mean? What does that look like? How important is it for you to connect with other people in the world or lift people up? You know what I mean? So but there are a set of values that they have, and I think a lot of companies do. They have them laid out like on their website, the values aren't as abstract. Some of them like, or invite everyone on board. Inviting everyone on board means, going out and helping others, you know what I mean? Going out in your community to help other people, this is the values that they live by. It's not just diversity is important. It's like invite everyone on board. We believe that everyone is important, So what does that look like in your life? How are you implementing that in your life? I can send them to you
Nice.
too if they're great values.
Go ahead, man. I'll take it. No, but I do like
I
that, and
got
I think they show, like, even by them doing this apprenticeship program, I think it shows that, like, these are things that they really operate by, because in my opinion, this is something that, like, every company could do, right? Like, start an apprenticeship
you. Mhm.
program. There's always this struggle between, like, hey, companies feel like they can't find the talent that's already, like, prepared, whether they have a college degree or not. So, like, if you feel that way, like, you have the opportunity to make apprenticeship programs or partner with companies like Tech Elevator to create an apprenticeship program. And not everybody's taking that opportunity. And so by them actually doing that, it does show that, hey, they are making sure that they're being inclusive, and not just from like an ethnicity standpoint, but even from like an educational or an age standpoint. Like, regardless of what your background is, regardless of like what your educational level is, we're going to train you and make sure that you're prepared so that you can be successful in this role. So I think that shows that they do live by that or operate by that, invite everybody on board. So I think that's great. I think
Absolutely.
it's encouraging to see that, like, they even incorporate that in how they decide who they hire, who they bring onto the team. So I think that's good stuff, man. So last question before I let you go. I can't let you go without, like, we didn't really talk that much about Niantic in terms of like the games that they make. I know we mentioned Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
That's the big one that, like, a lot of people know. I don't remember what year, but I remember everybody was outside with their phone, like, trying to capture Pokemon. And I was looking
Yep.
like, what's going on?
Yep.
But like, any other games that people may know about? I know you said y'all just had like a launch party. Are there any other games or titles people should be aware of?
Yeah, so in January we released a game called NBA All World. It's also a game in augmented reality. It's an amazing game. I highly suggest you play it. You know what I mean?
You playing NBA?
We
Wait,
just
how you do
It's
that?
called NBA All World.
Augmented
So it's
reality
like
basketball game?
So yeah, you basically you still have the map in the same way that you have a map in Pokemon Go to go catch
Yeah.
Pokemon, but they have on the map you can go to like different locations and there's different tournaments. You know what I mean? You might be able to play with someone.
Oh,
You could earn like different like things like maybe you want to get a pair of shoes, stuff like that. So it really still encourages you to go out and explore the world. You know what I mean? But it implements like basketball. You know what I
okay,
mean? So, but you go out and shoot.
cool.
I mean, you ain't shooting the
That's what I was
hoop
about to say.
like from your
Like, they got
phone,
you with
you
the
know.
phone, like,
You
trying to
ain't no,
shoot
you ain't,
at
no,
the
it
basketball
ain't
court.
like a Pokeball. You ain't throwing a Pokeball through the hoop. No, 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 no. You kind of it's augmented in the sense that it takes place on a map, the real world map, but the game for the most part is on the actual phone. You know.
Okay, cool. All right, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. What else? What else?
Yeah.
But that
No,
just
you
kind of
good.
piqued my interest. What else I got?
Yeah, I definitely highly suggest you check it out. We just released a game called Peridot, Peridot, and that's basically a game. You get these little like it's called a peridot. Basically, it's a peridot. It's a little animal, and each of the peridots that you have, they're individual. It's based like DNA. There's no one peridot that is like another. You know what I mean? So you kind of raise it, care for it. You can breed it with other people's peridots. You have your own little peridot. So we just released that earlier this week. It's also a really fun game, if I must admit myself. So I would highly suggest that. We got two more coming out this year. In September, we got a game called Monster Hunter.
Oh,
Monster
like the
Hunter
movie.
now, and it's based off that. So that's coming out in
Okay.
September. If folks are trying to get on the beta version, so that they could play, you could do that at monsterhunternow.com. Check it out. It's a lot of information if you want to stay in the loop. And then we also have a game coming out. All I can say is it's coming out in 2022. It's coming out this year. It's called uh, Marvel World of Heroes. So it's a game with Marvel.
Uh,
It's very, very exciting. And the thing about working at Niantic, a game company, is we get to dog food. It's dog food. We get to play these games before they're released, or we have the ability to, like, maybe a new feature is coming out for Pokemon Go in September. We can use it now. We can play with it now. So that's really cool. So we've been playing some of these games already. But again, if you want to like find out more about Marvel World Heroes, and I've been playing it, it's actually really, really fun. You can check that out at marvelworldheroes.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Cool.
again, like if you sign up early enough, you might be able to get on the beta release, so you get to play the game before everybody else does.
Yo, that's cool, man. I might need to check out,
Yeah,
see if y'all hiring. You know what I'm saying? You get free lunch,
yeah.
you get the free early access to the
Mm-hmm.
games and whatnot, and good salary. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Not bad.
It's pretty good, I must admit.
I'm messing with you, but man, nah, it's been a pleasure, man. I really appreciate you coming on and like sharing your story and giving so much advice and wisdom with everybody. Just kind of want to close it out. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to add or anything you want to mention? I know you've already kind of covered a lot, but just wanted to kind of give you that opportunity.
I would highly encourage people to stay in touch with Tech Elevator because um, I was just speaking on a panel and they actually just recently had an AutoZone cohort where everybody who was enrolled in the boot camp was going to go into software development working for AutoZone. So there's a
Mm.
lot of companies that I think are really trying to do this, implement this kind of like apprenticeship thing, because it's also a good way for not only people to come on board, invite everyone on board, but kind of like have this like fresh brain or fresh set of eyes, get acclimated with company culture and stuff like that. So I think a lot of companies are doing that, and people are honestly, some companies are even trying to start their own education program. So you get out of high school, you go to learn at Google, and you get all the skills you need to learn to be a software developer or work at Google. I think that there's a lot of things that are changing. So I would say, yeah, keep your eyes open, because there's a lot of apprenticeship opportunities that seem to be, going around. Maybe not a lot,
Yo,
but there are some.
yeah. No, I like that, and I
Yeah.
mean, we could have a whole other conversation about like educational system and what
Yeah.
needs to change. But no, I definitely I think there needs to be more alternatives than just college, especially if the whole student loan debt crisis and everything is not going to be fixed anytime soon. So glad to hear, man. That's encouraging to
Absolutely.
hear that like Tech Elevator and other companies are like partnering together to address the issue and make sure that people have the skill set to get these high paying in demand jobs and everything. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
But brother Austin Jones, man, it's been amazing talking to you, man. I appreciate you for coming on and sharing everything. For you guys who have watched this interview, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you do that. I don't want you to miss out. Also, like this video, share it with a friend. I'm sure you know somebody. If you're not personally interested in getting into tech, I'm sure you know somebody who is. So I think this will add a lot of value to them. So be sure to share it with somebody. I appreciate you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And make sure you stay tuned. We'll be back soon with another great episode of the Custom Journeys podcast. Peace.